Thank you very much for the introduction, Veronica. Thank you again for hosting. It's been a joy working with you since last year, March, I guess, earlier in the year, and we start putting together this program, and which we started in June. So I think this is very exciting that we're coming on to a year soon of providing a lot of great seminars and panel discussions to the audience with idea exchange. So as Veronica said, I am the founder and executive director of Our Inner Sparks. Our Inner Sparks is a social enterprise that provides products and services that enables individuals, businesses, and organizations to reach their fullest potential and make a difference in this ever-changing world. We offer many services, and as a social enterprise, we also dedicate a portion of our profits to support social programs. To empower and enable others in the community, especially women in need. But as an example, we also provide a lot of services to people who are, in any type of role that they are in the community through a program like this, Ignite Our Inner Sparks series in partnership with Idea Exchange. We have been reaching out to the community and helping many through the pandemic. So I've been very fortunate to be able to work with Idea Exchange on this, and it's been going really well, as we said. It has been going really well because we also do a lot of surveying. We figure out what are the topics that people want to talk about and want to hear. So tomorrow, after today's session, we'll be also sending out a survey. Hopefully you can take about 5 minutes in your day to provide us feedback, and that'll help us continuously improve, as well as understand what topics are relevant to you. An upcoming event, also free with Idea Exchange, is in April. We'll be doing career growth in challenging times, and that's going to be a workshop. So we'll be doing some exercises, and we'll be providing some strategies and tools to help you not only really survive through these challenging times with your career, but also think about how do you position yourself to grow your career. On top of that, we'll be also providing workshop for people in leadership or aspiring leaders in terms of emotional intelligence. We are going to do a workshop. We've been booked to do a workshop on April 14th. We still have limited space available, so if anyone's interested, feel free to email us at ourinnersparks@gmail.com. So without further ado, let's get to today's session, and today's topic is women in leadership. And it is, I don't know if everyone knows, but International Women's Day was March 8th, and the theme from United Nations was leadership, women in leadership. So I thought, in honor of that, let's invite some women leaders in our community to speak about the changes that they've observed and celebrate any successes that we've seen, as well as to talk about what opportunities are still there, what challenges and opportunities are still there, and how can we encourage that to continue to, how can we encourage others to continue to progress and make women in leadership more dominant and more, I guess, to bring that forth and progress continually. So I brought in 3 wonderful leaders, female leaders in the community, and we're going to introduce them right now. So I'm going to stop sharing this and we can bring them up on the video. And first one we're going to start with is Mary. So Mary, would you can actually unmute.
Sorry, I was double muted.
That's okay.
Here I am. Hi.
Hello, this is Mary, and Mary is a director and HR business partner at BlackBerry. In her actual current role, she is helping many leaders and coaching them through supporting and giving them advice on be effective leaders within the business. But also, aside from that, she also supports the C-level leadership team in their various business critical initiatives. So she is a successful female leader in a very male dominant technology sector. Welcome, Mary.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for having me.
Jennifer, we're gonna bring her up. There you go, Jennifer. Hello, welcome. So Jennifer has many titles. I'm going to go through that. She is the Artistic Director of Toronto City Opera, Artistic Director of Mississauga Children's Choir, voice faculty at Glen Gould School, Assistant Conductor of Mississauga Symphony Orchestra and Mississauga Symphony Youth Orchestra. Jennifer is a very active part of Toronto's music scene and holds many leadership positions in performing arts, as you can see. She is also a leading visionary and educator in classical music. Welcome, Jennifer.
Hello, thank you for having me.
So glad you guys are here, ladies. Then we have Diane. Hello, Diane. All right. So Diane is the CEO of Leadership Waterloo Region. Diane has been the CEO of this amazing organization for the past few years, and she's been working with many leaders as well as aspiring leaders in Waterloo Region through the Community Leadership Development Programs. And prior to her current role, Diane has held senior positions in advancement at the University of Waterloo, Wilfrid Laurier, and University of Guelph. So she is an experienced leader in the not-for-profit and education sector. Welcome, Diane.
Thank you, Lily. It's a pleasure to be here.
I'm so thrilled you ladies are able to join us today for this engaging and critical conversation. We will be bringing diverse experience, hopefully, from various sectors, and really to bring and shed some light on the extent of the changes that we've seen and observed for women in the role of leadership as a whole, but also maybe talk about the minute differences between the different areas of the community that we're involved in. So thank you so much. And let's get right into it. I just lost my mouse. That's okay. So I know I didn't really give a lot of justice for the vast experience that you guys have, you ladies have, and in terms of journey as a female leader, and with the short introduction I gave for each of you. So maybe we can remedy that with our first question, which is, can you talk a little bit more about yourself? And introduce a bit more of your life and your career to the audience, and maybe highlight something that you enjoy the most in your career journey that led you to your current leadership position. Let's start with Jennifer on this question.
All right. So I actually have had a very interesting journey to get to where I am right now. I mean, I've always been, in music. I studied classical music for my undergraduate and my graduate degree. But coming into a leadership position, and in this case, as conductor or, music director or artistic director of an organization, really hadn't started until about 4 or 5 years ago. So this has actually been quite recent. But I've always loved conducting since I was little. And I actually did a little bit of conducting as a student assistant when I was in high school. But one of the overwhelming thing when I was deciding what I was going to do, as a university degree, I looked and I said, well, there are so few female conductors that were out there at the time when I was in high school. And I was like, I don't think that that's a viable career. I think it would be too dangerous, like very practical me, like at 18, and was like, well, I think that, I should just like go and get a degree in singing and then, in piano, because it's much more likely for me to get a position, rather than being a conductor of an orchestra, or a choir. And so I actually had chosen that road. And of course, over the years, and actually I did study some conducting with then resident conductor Wing Si Yip, who is also a female conductor. At the time, she was one of the very few, if not the only one at the time that I knew that was a female conductor for orchestra. And so then about 4 or 5 years ago, all of that passion kind of came back, and actually there was at the time it was the first year that they had actually installment of this program called the Mitch and Hart Institute for Women Conductors at the Dallas Opera. And so I actually contacted them and asked them if I could apply, and I actually did apply. I didn't end up going because I was an international fellow, and they were only having 2 positions out of 6, and the other ones have to be like, sort of in the US. But I was very, very close. And so I actually got really wonderful feedback from an international jury. And so I basically just decided, I was like, you know what, I think I'm going to give this a try, because I have really wanted to do this, like all my life. And the sum of all my other musical experience now at this point in my life made sense for me to, like make that step. And so I made the step, and it was really scary, in the beginning, but I'm loving what I do, right now.
Mhm.
So.
You're muted.
Lily, I think
Oh.
you're muted.
Lily, we lost
There
you.
we go. Thank you. I was just going to say, amazing journey. Yeah, and I think there's a lot of the pieces that we always, as women too, speak to ourselves, and our inner critics speak to ourselves, and there's a lot of fear there, right? So glad that the timing worked out for you, and also that you're able to kind of work through that, the fear, and really congratulations, because your career is really flourishing. All right, Mary, what about you?
Sure. My journey's quite different, but I mean, I've lived in the region my whole life, so I have not worldly. I haven't done a whole lot of that kind of travel or anything, but I'm kind of homegrown, and so I started out in accounting, and worked at an accounting firm for 8 years and did that. And then quite literally, I went from there to where I am today. I've been here 20 years almost in the summer, so it's been a long journey where I am, and I've done many different things in my career with BlackBerry, to be honest. But I find that, and you have the typical HR being female. There is that whole stigma that's a lot of where women end up kind of being. But I think with good reason, because we love to help people, we love to grow people. We got some good business sense too, and I find that HR is really evolving and becoming a true partner to the business. Like, we are really invested with the business. They look to us for our skills and expertise to guide them in many different ways, not just in developing people. So, I mean, I've been fortunate to do so many different things, but I feel like I've finally found my true passion in helping people, and I get to do it every day. So, I mean, that's sort of my world and my story a little bit.
Love that. Love that. I love how you brought up the passion, because I think a lot of women, and I work with a lot of entrepreneurs, and I've been actually involved in the entrepreneurial center at Laurier, University of Laurier, Book of Laurier. And honestly, everybody who comes to that program are full of passion. And that's what women, I see that big difference with women entrepreneurs, is that we do it from the heart. It's actually coming
and
from
I
a place
see
of
it,
heart.
Lily, exactly with the leaders that I work with that are female and in a very male-dominated organization. The drive and the passion, it's you can't compare, and I love it. It's
Yeah.
I wish everybody could channel it and harness it. And
Right.
yeah,
Right.
it's very good. I agree.
Diane, what about you? What's your journey
Excellent.
like?
Well, I started my career at United Way. Then it was of Kitchener-Waterloo and area. And that really exposed me to the community, not only the agencies and all the amazing work that's done, but the leaders of those agencies, the leaders from our community, from industry, private sector, that volunteered on these boards and raised money through cabinets. And I always knew there was more. Like, there's always more you can do. In 2002, I graduated from the Leadership Waterloo Region program, and that was really life-changing for me. I then decided what I really got out of the program was, I thought before, I had to be the keeper of all knowledge. If you're on a committee or I can't chair that committee. I don't know enough about that. But what I realized my leadership superpower is I'm like a librarian. I can find the information. I can get the right people. Let's be surrounded by all the experts who can really carry it through. So I know what I know, and I'll continue to strive to know more. But that really took me on a journey to post-secondary education, being able to work on very dynamic, complex teams with lots of staff under and above, It was just a real learning journey. I also have an entrepreneurial spirit. I owned a Heart of the Region where I settled people from all over the world into our community, helping them transition into new workplaces and that sort of thing. So not a straight journey. Very wherever I found opportunity or where my passion lied, I was able to pursue that. So I had lots of amazing mentors along the way and still do. So that's what I think has really allowed me to see potential not only in myself, but in programs and other people. What I like best, I will tell anybody, I have the best gig in town. I get to work with people who are passionate about our community, want to make a difference. That is my why. That is what gets me out of bed in the morning with a smile on my face and knowing that we're all making a difference together and being able to help people realize that I have this incredible skill set and passion and I can move forward and make a difference. So that's a little bit about me and my journey and what I love about what I'm doing now at Leadership Waterloo Region.
Oh, love that, love that. There's so much in that around connectivity, community, and the togetherness. And I think that speaks a lot to, just a lot of how women work as well, I think. How we actually kind of, it's a tight-knit community, can actually support each other. And we can talk a little bit more about that in terms of opportunity and what else we can do with that. That's, and it's exactly what you're saying, the spirit of, being there and be the connecting fiber for everything. That's great. Amazing. Thank you. So let's get into some of the, I guess, maybe let's celebrate, because Diane, you're talking about, this wonderful organization with Leadership Waterloo Region. And, in terms of what you've seen in the time that you've been there, what are some even the advancements or wins that you've seen in terms of leaders, of women in leadership roles?
Fantastic. Well, over the years, I've really seen leadership evolve. When I first started out in my career, it was somehow thought that leadership in a nonprofit was perhaps different than the business world, but leadership is leadership. I see as we move on, I see women lifting each other up more than that competitiveness. And I also see people leading from an authentic place through their values. So there's less fear of being vulnerable. This is who I am. These are my strengths and weaknesses. Let's celebrate our strengths. And you know what? I'm going to recruit around my weaknesses because then together we have that team mentality. And I've seen that that's very brave leadership, courageous leadership, when you see people are able to be themselves. And I've seen that as a real success and wins. I also think we've come a very long way. I hate to say I'd go into a meeting in the 90s and it was assumed that I would get the coffee, which I certainly don't mind doing, but that assumption it's a lot different now. So how far have we come? We've come a very long way. We'll go into more with the other questions, but we've also come a long way with our individuals have with their own journey. So a lot has changed in our world that's allowing more for reflectiveness. And it's not selfish to have that inner happiness, that joy, balance. And I think that shines through in leadership. And I think women are modeling that very well.
Great. Yeah, no, I do see that too in my experiences, that women are really starting to shine and not, like you said, not afraid to be vulnerable and becoming braver in their own reign and honestly taking charge in their own journey and celebrating it. So that's a lot of what you said are so valuable. Anything else to add, Jennifer, Mary, in terms of what you've seen in your areas that, in performing arts or in technology sector, if you've seen and observed advancement in women in leadership?
I mean, it's actually a very interesting topic, especially like where I am right now, because until very recently and even now, the conducting sector, especially which is where I am in now, is still till this day very male dominant. It I think in recent years, as I started, doing this, I'm seeing more and more organizations that are setting out programs and give people, like give women opportunities to actually, learn and to be mentored, like by other people. And what I've seen, I think the biggest difference is very early on, and this was before my time, then there were and still are, like those people who have been in the conducting business for a long time, and they really struggled. And I've heard them talk, about being like the only, female conductor in, I don't know, many other, like male participants in prestigious summer programs or competitions, and such. And what ended up happening is that the women conductors very frequently try to model after the masculinity of what a male conductors would do, even with the way that they dress, right? Like they would wear pants, and like a suit, and also sort of the way that they address the musicians, like when they're doing that, trying to be like very tough. And so there wasn't they weren't really allowed to be vulnerable or be themselves, like so to say. But I think that in recent years that has drastically changed. Like that you can see that there are female conductors now out there that are much more being themselves. You see female conductors wearing gowns, like conducting, and really allow the more empathetic model of a leadership, and in the top end, like of an orchestra especially. In the choral conducting field is a little bit different. I think it's a little bit easier, but in the orchestral field is still very male dominant. And now there are also more organizations that are having programs, like they're coming up with programs that are specifically used to to mentor. So recently I just found out that I got accepted into the fellowship, one of the two people into a conducting fellowship that's nationwide. Is Canada is a partner with Tapestry Opera, Pacific Opera, and the Toronto Symphony Orchestra. And yeah, thank you. And so it's been really like amazing to be sort of the inaugural cohort of this fellowship, and we'll actually get to work with many different companies across Canada in the next 3 years. And it's a three sort of there's 6 people total, and each 2 actually start a year apart, so that by the time the third people start, we themselves would actually become mentors for the people that are coming in. And so it's actually very it's very exciting. Like I'm really looking forward to it, and I'm very grateful for many different organizations that are really making a point in trying to help nurture females in this field. So
absolutely. I love the fact that the programs are available and readily available, more so than before. And the second thing you're saying is it's naturally, the people who are going through it now or previously, in terms of what Diane was talking about, their programs, these women are now mentors for the new generation that's coming in. And that's very encouraging. Awesome. Mary, what about you?
I think you've really hit the things that I think I'm seeing too. And even in high tech, it's still, like I said, it's very male dominated. I work with the board of directors, mostly men. It is just still, and we're still sort of in that phase, but we're getting women more into the sciences. We're getting women more, like it's coming, we're getting there. It's a bit of a slow process, but what I am seeing is women showing more confidence, and instead of talking about what they lack, they're showing what they can really do. And I try to encourage, well, any leader for that matter, to do that. But it is, I find in women, it's that there's a program by the Humphrey Group called Taking the Stage, which is phenomenal, and it's for women in leadership. And it's one of those ones we offer at work, and it really is. They talk about this crow on your shoulder that's constantly telling you can't do it. You're just be quiet, don't say anything, you don't have anything to add. And it talks about how you say things in emails like just my 2 cents, or I'm really sorry, but or I was just thinking, like it's the language we use. And I think women, I'm seeing it more and more. And in the focus nowadays, I'm sure you've all seen it, is really on diversity and equity and inclusion. And so companies are really feeling like they've got this need to step up and really make a difference in the current environment we're in the society we're in. And so I see great strides. In fact, now more than ever this past year. I feel like women, there's going to be bigger and much more higher level positions for them because those doors are wide open now.
Oh,
So I'm
sounds
excited about
amazing.
that. Yeah,
Yes, that
yeah,
sounds definitely amazing.
yeah.
And I think that's across the board. I think a lot of companies are, moving into that space, especially with, you said inclusion, right? And
Mhm.
diversity. And there's a lot of companies that are hiring senior positions for that type of roles
Yep.
to put in programs in their organizations. So it's totally amazing. The other thing I would say also is there's a lot of government funding in the whole women leadership as well. There's a lot of great programs that's coming up in secondary, post-secondary education for women to step into the leadership role. And I just finished a program for accelerating my business from Wilfrid Laurier University. That's just amazing. Like the funding and the support that are given to the women in the community, and I'm sure this is coming across to entire Canada, and there's tons of programs that's available. So I think no time like today to be a woman who is aspiring to be a leader. There's so much support, so many programs. It's really, like you said, almost removing that you can't little critic on your shoulder and say, yes, you can change that language, and you'll find and discover all of these great things that are available near us, right? And all around us. So it's amazing timing. Lots to celebrate there. Thank you so much for all of those insights of what's happening in each of the sectors. Mary, as you were saying, in terms of the male dominant technology sector, I think we celebrate really great things, but I think there's still lots of big struggles, I would say, as well for women who are in the leadership position and in those sectors. And I think we can observe that through just, like you said, how many people are still in those leadership positions that are male versus female. What are some big struggles that you see in the industry right now?
Sure. For me, I think a lot of times when you have these long tenured CEOs that run these companies, they have their people, and a lot of times it's just that you bring the people that you value, you've worked with, you've trusted for a long time. So, and there's nothing wrong with that because it does dictate your past success, which would foreshadow hopefully your future success. However, I think what that continues to do sometimes, if they're not open to change, um, doesn't allow for those positions to move upward, other people to move upward and into those really trusted, important positions, making those big decisions for those companies. And I think that's just comfort. And I think that's just time it's been time. And so, these, like I said, they've been doing it for many years. It's worked for them. It's tried and true. Why would I change and do something different? So I feel
And
like
also in the
that's,
past, I would
yeah,
say in the past, female haven't been really in the technology.
that's right.
So I think the past pattern also still is,
You
there's
got
still
it.
some momentum there, right?
Yeah, they come by
Sorry, I
it
didn't mean to interrupt
honestly.
you.
No, but you're right. They kind of it's not a intentional thing. I think it's just part of the makeup of the generations of how it's been working. So I do see a big shift. I mean, I see things like even in my world, I think I said earlier that they really rely on us as a partner. It used to be called the HR generalist or something where you just knew a little bit about everything and you helped them with push the paper and you got the processes done. But they really look to us for strategic leadership direction, how we are going to, support those employees, keeping diversity in mind. I mean, these leaders have so much on their plate, but they are willing to open that door and ask those tough questions that I think they didn't in the past, and from my experience. And I think that is shifting. And it is shifting and creating more of that pipeline of women to kind of move into those higher level, more strategic planning, operational, running those, like pulling the levers, pushing the knobs, whatever you got to do. That's happening. So I think I'm seeing that shift in our world, in our IT world, but it's slow. It is a little bit slow, just because time has dictated that it's sort of the same generations are still in power. So until that starts, and I'm sure, Diane, you see it with these new and up and coming in your work, like startups, more women. I mean, it will come, right? But I do see there's a bit of a barrier, but it's the trust and the reliance on the expertise is coming slowly. Yeah.
That's encouraging. Diane, just why don't you answer that and then continue that question as well? What challenges you see in terms of struggles that women still have in the leadership role?
Well, I'm going to turn it on its head into the nonprofits because it truly is more female dominant sector. And there isn't anyone who speaks on behalf of nonprofits. Like there isn't a minister of nonprofits, right? There isn't any lobbyist position. We're sort of lumped in with small to mid-sized businesses and very different needs, very different needs. So things I've noticed over the years that have come a long way, but still a barrier is salaries. You know, you have individuals, women, because it was female dominated. Well, because the salaries were low, it was female dominated, quite frankly. People who were seen as the head of the household supporting the family often weren't working in a nonprofit. Now, a lot of that is changing. I'm seeing people being, receiving a fair salary for the work they're doing. Some competitive. Of course, post-secondary is able to offer more competitive salaries, but when you look at nonprofits, it's always under scrutiny. And I think for many reasons, it will continue to be female dominated, but one of them is that there isn't anyone lobbying for the entire group, and there just isn't, the money's not there. So that's such a huge struggle because the sector loses key leaders, strategists, people who are visionaries, because it's expensive to live. Look at Waterloo Region, it's expensive to live here. So what are the answers to that? You know, we need people to speak up. It's going to look a lot different post-COVID. Who knows? Office space may be able to be given up and more money can be put into salaries. There's going to be lots of creativity, but to attract and keep strong leaders in the sector is key, because we're dealing with either the most vulnerable people or people at their most vulnerable time. And we all fit into one of those categories. It's going to happen. You're going to need resources in the community. And it's important as leaders, and a lot of female leaders in this sector, that we give them the support that they need to continue to take care of our communities.
Right. Absolutely. And I think, and like you said, the not-for-profit, there's another part why I think it's more female dominant, because it's a lot of things from passion and sourced from heart and wanting to help the community. It's really not only, I think that's why probably also it's been predominantly women as well who are more involved. Like you said, the salary is definitely a key point. Yeah, for sure. I think not-for-profit can do with much better salary to keep their talent pool, right? So that they don't get attracted by the technology sector, who's definitely paying a lot more these days. What about Jennifer? What about in your sector? What are some struggles that you still see?
I mean, I think it's multiple folds, and so all the organizations I work for, and most of the musical organizations that are community based, like Mississauga Symphony and Mississauga Children's Choir, and even my opera company, they're all actually nonprofit. Like so we're all actually nonprofit, and for sure, I echo what Diane says. There's just not a lot of money in this sector. So, running a pro orchestra like the TSO, of course requires a lot more, like forces, and people, but that is not to say to run, an organization like the MSO or the Mississauga Children's Choir, it doesn't take less effort and less amount of time, but certainly there's a lot less money that's involved, like when you're running those organizations, and most of them, especially through COVID, is really, is really struggling. And being in sort of an artistic, leadership conducting, like role, I think so many years, people are used to seeing a man on the podium, and so that comes with expectations of how rehearsals are run. You are supposed to have these kind of qualities, as a human being, when you're leading from the podium. But what ends up happening is that you're missing a lot of sort of more subtle things that a female leadership can actually provide that usually doesn't come with, you know, like a male leadership, you know, on the podium. So I think the struggle is that there's a lot of perception of, you know, like people in the business still in this generation, that they don't feel like that the female conductors or female, you know, artistic directors have the right stuff, so to say, you know, like to be leaders. You know, they're not tough enough, or they're not, you know, like demanding enough. And but the thing is, you can get a lot of results through many different venues, you know, and it's just like there's no one way, you know, like to success. And I think what I am seeing that is that slowly that people are starting to be willing to think about maybe difference is okay, and maybe sometimes even difference is good. Well, we're not quite there yet, but you know, but like, you know, people are now starting to accept that, you know, maybe we'll try something different, maybe that's okay. And we've seen definitely a lot more, you know, a lot more females that are coming up and wanting to, you know, take the leadership role. And what happens that to the next generation, because I'm so big on education, is that when I'm standing at the role where I am, so my students see, you know, like what I do, and they get inspired. And I have many students who go, oh my God, I didn't even think that this is possible. So I'm definitely going to think about that, because now I can see that, you know, it is actually possible. So it's really encouraging the next generation to be more bold, you know, and take a step, you know, into these kinds of positions.
Mhm. I love what you said. And I think it resonates across any sector, to have more female models out there, and that others can see and follow. And I love what you just said about difference is good. And I'm sure, like, Mary and I worked for a long time too at BlackBerry, and her and I talked many times about this as female leaders in the organization that are very male dominated. And we're often saying, you know, there's a lot of great things that female leaders bring to the table that may not be recognized as good things, but really, if you keep accepting it and really stay open with it, you'll see how actually it's adding more value to the business. So I think it's more opportunity for women to continue to demonstrate that in the business. That's wonderful. Okay, so let's maybe talk about, you know, what are some of the opportunities. I think we talked a little bit about it. Diane kind of went into a little bit in terms of what can we as women do to continue to move us forward, but also then what can we do as a whole in the community, in the society, to continue moving us forward. Jennifer, actually, why don't we start that one with you in terms of, you know, we talked about the struggle, and then what can we actually do individually as women, or even as together, collective, but then also collectively as a whole in the society? What can we continue to do?
You know, I think especially for you know, like for music, you know, something like music, it really needs to start the nurturing from a very young age, because it takes lots of years of experience to get to, you know, in the leadership position, you know, in any musical organization. And I think for, you know, for me as an educator, you know, working a lot with children in many different capacities, is encouragement, you know, and telling them that it's okay, you know, like when you are walking on a road, you know, yes, there are certain expectations, but it's okay to try things out. So you fall and you get back up and you learn and you do better, and it's okay, you know, absolutely, to be doing that. A lot of people, I think, I mean, I'm sure that parents, if any of you, you know, that are parents, that you have probably run into, you know, when you let your kids take music lessons, and then sort of, you know, by the time they're 11 or 12, well, I don't really want to practice, or like I'm not really, you know, like successful, and so I just want to quit. And so my advice always, you know, like to a lot of the parents, that actually, you know, tell your kids, you know, like that. And if you want any success in anything, it takes some form of sacrifice and some form of hard work. And maybe that doesn't feel okay right now, because all I want to do is just to go out to the mall or go out, you know, like, and play. But you will find that, you know, with a little bit of nudging and you know, sort of get them focused, you know, they will actually work through that hump, and they'll realize the rewards on the other, you know, on the other end. And I think that as mentors, you know, sort of as a whole, you know, having mentors is really, really important. I mean, like I have been very lucky that I have very good, you know, like mentors. But, you know, having somebody with experience to be able to guide the younger ones, so that they do see, of course, the rewards, but also sort of where the roadblocks are and how to maneuver and not get discouraged, like from them, I think makes a really big difference, and it definitely sets up for a much brighter future, for those leadership people who are interested, in those positions.
Very good points. I also find, as not just children, as how difficult it is for female leaders in the area. Very often we may end up quitting, we end up giving up because it's so hard. It's also having that support and mentor to continue challenging you to pursue and continue down that path, because ultimately that's what it is. It's like, in order for you to succeed in this, there will be some sacrifice, there will be some hardship, and there will be some challenges, but the fruit on the other end, the reward on the other end, and it may not even be in this generation, it may be in the next generation. And the things that we're doing now, how we're trailblazing and pioneering, is going to make a huge difference in that future generation in education. So I think that's amazing. Hopefully we can see more, like I said, more opportunities in the organization, even in community with programs. We'll continue to develop that and give that model to our children, right? Like, so.
Yeah,
Okay.
and I also think it's really important to support organizations who are willing to take a step to start programs that actually will mentor. I think that's also really important, to really get a rally behind those organizations who are getting a start, on those things.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you for that. Diane, what about you? What other additional advice you would have for individuals, also as a collective in a community?
Well, I think as female leaders, we have a responsibility. Somebody is always watching you. That little girl is always watching you, right? So it's important, I always say, to celebrate the strengths. I grew up in a generation where, well, you're not very good at this and you're going to be graded, and you should try harder there. Every report card said, you talk too much. Well, guess what? Now I'm paid to talk. No guidance counselor ever told me that, right? I didn't even know that was an option. So it's really important that you look and say, these are your strengths. Let's celebrate them. Let's build on them. If you could try to get calculus, you could spend 40 hours a week trying to teach me that. But you know what? If you spent an hour with a podcast on what I'm good at, I'll probably take it up to a higher level. So it's really looking at that. Get youth involved. It's really important with our young women to give them genuine praise. Not you look pretty. That's a pretty dress. I have a mother of 4, and I looked at my daughter, watched her friends dancing, and she said, you look like you were having the best time out there. Is that not a genuine compliment? Because that's what she saw. So it's really, someone's always watching you. Encourage people to get involved. Like I would say to my dad, he'd say, how was camp today? Oh, I didn't like it. It was boring. He'd say, well, you didn't put anything into it then, right? It's like that with your relationships, everything. If you look at your work, your volunteer career, the more you put in, the more you're going to get out of it. So find out, start young, encourage, what are you most interested in? Where's your passion? What do you like to do? And let's get you involved in the community doing those things, because that's experience and that'll help dictate your path in life. Mm-hmm. The other thing is encourage and model work-life balance. There's no either or. You have a career or you have kids. How many times have people said, well, they gave up their career to have children? Mm-hmm. We need to support each other through that. Show me anybody who works a solid 5 to 6 hours, and they'll get more done in that time than you do in 12 hours of being interrupted and not, having that mindset. So if you're worried about your home, I had a boss, Linda Kieswetter at the University of Waterloo, and after I had my first child, she said, I'm going to give you some advice. When you're at work, you can think about work and not feel guilty about not being at home. And when you're at home, think about home and don't feel guilty about not being at work. So it's having those other women in your life that hold you up and model that. It's so it's so important, because in a sense you can have it all, right? And in a lot of times you can have it on your terms. Being easy to manage is a lot different than managing yourself. And that's something that I took away from Sam and Mark Hurwitz's book, Leadership is Only Half the Story. But it's so true. You have to manage yourself, your own expectations, and ask the same of others, because we're stronger together. And I want to retire one day and know that things in the community are in good hands, as we all do. But yeah, just be there for each other, be available. That's
Nice. Well said. I honestly think, you know, the life balance, life work balance is so important. And I do hear some companies trying to look for ways to deal with that, not just from the flexibility perspective, but also offering job sharing. Very few companies do that right now, but I think it's something that, you know, companies should continue to challenge and look at. I've spoken recently to a C-level leader, and he's like, I'm really interested in hearing more about this, and really thinking about how we can actually ensure that women stay relevant in the workplace through something like this, and that they're not giving up, like you said, to have kids, you know? So that's wonderful, right? Even people are just starting to think about that and figure out what programs would be beneficial both for the women and for the business, right? Mary, what about you? In the tech?
Yeah, well, I mean, those are great comments, and I echo exactly the same sentiment. I'm being a woman and having raised children, and while still raising adults, in my opinion. But you know, it never ends, quite frankly. But I find what I try to do is, the other thing I think that's really important is to encourage men in the workplace to also not just mentor but sponsor. We need you to sponsor someone. We can't just, you know, mentoring is great and it's very important, but what opportunities are you putting in front of these women that allow them to grow, like actual real tangible opportunities? And I think that's a big piece that, you know, I work really hard at encouraging through my work, because they do hold those positions of accountability and decision making, and they do have that power to put someone like Diane or Jennifer or yourself in front of the CEO for a project, or in front of somebody where they're recognized for their skill set. And so that's really important to me, is to make sure that it's not just me explaining to you how I got to where I am, and you know, or how to go about, you know, maybe taking the next steps, but actually putting opportunity in front of you. And I think we have a long way to go in that respect, but it is the more we chip away at it, to your point, right? Like, you just have to keep pushing. And I hope if any legacy I leave, you know, it's that, you know, I've done the advocacy that I can in the generation that I work within, and that I see that this next generation is going to be that much better. So, I mean, we're not going to fix it overnight, but we're making a dent. And I think maybe in the next, you know, the next generation of hardworking women will be those CEOs, and we might have to go back and go, oh, we need some men to move up the ladder at some point. You never know, right? You never know. Yeah, you never know.
I love it, and
yeah.
I absolutely don't think this is a women's issue. This is a community and society issue that we definitely need more male counterparts involved. I totally echo that, and I think I will commit to next term, as in this program, I want to invite a whole group of male in here and talk about women in leadership, because that will change the conversation. That will encourage a different perspective. And I would love to do that and just have that conversation, and then bring everybody together and have a big happy conversation about how do we continue to move us all forward. Because honestly, I think there's a lot of male that are doing awesome work. And like you said,
there are.
You know, Lily, I think we'd be really remiss if we didn't recognize that. You know, I have learned from, been mentored, you know, been a mentee. I've had so many positive men in my life that have said, you can do this. Like, why would you ever think you can't? And even, you know, I look about the men that are leaders in my life now. I have a husband who is very supportive, and we're equals, right? Our conversations are incredible. And I look at all the men that serve on our board of directors, and they're inspiring. They're with the times and see what needs to be done. Like, I don't want to dismiss any of the fantastic men that are helping to raise the women up.
Well, yeah,
Absolutely.
I mean, like my mentor and continues to be my mentor now is the music director of Mississauga Symphony, and he has never treated me like, oh, well, you are a female conductor, so you have to be different. He'll be like, no, you are a conductor. Well, these are the things that you need to learn, and you have to. And I really so appreciate that he treats me and teaches me the things that I need to do and develop the abilities that I have, rather than like, well, we just need to be careful because maybe you're too sensitive, do that. That was never, like that. And for me, that was probably one of the greatest things, like that has happened to me as a development, as a leader.
These examples are amazing, and not just good modeling for female and the female generations of girls coming up, but also for the generation of boys come up to model, after. And so I think it'll be amazing to continue to have those conversations. I would love to, I'm going to do that. I'll commit to have some conversations next year with male leaders who are, like Mary said, giving the opportunity and helping to mentor others. So thank you so much. This has been such an engaging conversation. And is there any questions? I don't want to leave the audience here dry. If there are any questions, please feel free to add into the chat. In the meantime, I'm going to start closing up a little bit, and just to say that, thank you so much, Mary, Jennifer, and Diane. Lovely to speak with you. So much insight, and honestly, a lot of great outlook in where we're going as women in leadership roles. I appreciate all your persistence in your own journey, but also then, your persistence in helping others and mentoring others and being model for our future generations. So thank you so much for doing all of that. If we don't have any questions coming from the audience, I am going to close it up then. Thank you so much to all of our audience for listening today, and appreciating you spending your lunchtime with us and going through this session. And hopefully it was enjoyable for you as it is enjoyable for us, and that you've learned so much as well for maybe utilizing some of the skills that we're talking about, or some of the strategies that we may be talking about in terms of making it better in your own life. And then, like I said, we'll definitely schedule something next year around the male counterpart and the conversation with them around women in leadership. And then what I would like to do is also say that, I think continually we need to, as women, like many of you already said, we need to stick together and really support each other. And we want to make sure that we continue to be there. So our Inner Sparks will also continue to be there as well for women and for women in need as well. We'll continue to provide workshops and things like that wherever necessary, at times free, and from a social program perspective. And we want to make sure that we're encouraging continued growth of women in our society, because if we support each other, we'll be stronger together. So anyway, in closing, I want to say that I want to thank Veronica as well, Veronica and Idea Exchange, for hosting these events, and see you soon.
Thank you, Lily. It was a pleasure.
Lily, it was
for all your hard work.
I look to our paths crossing soon, all of us.
Yes, absolutely.
Thanks for the chat.
Take care.